Hey guys, what's going on? Pat Sith here, bringing you guys a guide on the Blood Death Knight. Um, this is in Warlords of Draenor Beta. This is obviously new. Uh, to begin with, Blood DKs have gone through a lot of changes in this new expansion. Sad to say, they took away some of our stuff, but with this recent hotfix that they just implemented, they decided to put some stuff back in. So let's go ahead and begin with what they took away and what they didn't. So looking at our spellbook, we still have our main moves: anti-magic shell. We have Bones Shield. I mean, we still have our same old, same old. The only thing that I noticed myself that they took away is they took away Rune Strike and they replaced it with Death Coil as your filler for runes. Blood Tap is still the same, so there is no problem with that. They also decided to crunch down our moves. For example, Blood Boil here is no longer it automatically spreads diseases for you. So it's basically a pestilence within a pestilence. Also, keep note they also changed some other things like your Scent of Blood, for example. I guess they don't have it in here, but your main filler for a Death Strike increased healing now is from spamming Blood Boil. I guess they made it so that's a part of your rotation. That's what you do for spamming, or you could just spam Death Strike depending on the situation accordingly. So that's basically what is new about Blood DKs. Also, what's also new is Bone Shield has 8 charges up from 6. I mean that's pretty unique. Uh, but that's pretty solid. I mean Blood DKs went through some changes. I mean all tank changes. This is now revolving the tank changes period. DKs no longer get Vengeance along with any other tank class. They get Resolve, which increases your healing and absorption done to yourself based on damage taken. So basically, Blizzard, in short term, increased your threat generation passively. I forgot by how much instead of granting all that attack power. And your mastery, your new mastery, I believe, where is it? It increases your attack power passively in addition to your blood shield increase. So that's pretty unique. So, alright, on to the next part. Talents. They did some changes to our talents here. To begin with, they took away your rolling blood, but that's because Blood Boil now does that for you. They replace it with Plaguebringer. Your Death Coil and Frost Strike now affect your target, adding 4 seconds to the duration of Frost Fear and Blood Plague, and adding an additional tick to Necrotic Plague. And I'll explain that later. But Plague Bearer, honestly, is my preferred choice this expansion for blood tanks, but I'll go over the other two as well. Plague Leech is still the same. They haven't changed that at all, so that's the same so far, so forth. Same with Unholy Blight, that hasn't changed, so we'll keep it at that. Lichborn, they changed your primary stat. Well, it isn't your primary stat, but they changed it to Leech instead of having Death Coil self-heal you. That's the changes to Lichborn. So, I mean, I don't know all the stats offhand. I got this not long ago, so I'm still getting used to all the new stats, but I'm introducing you guys to the new stuff here. AMS is now 3 seconds, and damage reduced by 20%. That would not be preferred by any Blood DK by any means. I mean, that's pretty situational. Purgatory is still my preferred choice. It is still the same. It has not changed at all. Okay, now here comes the part where there could be some debates. Here comes some arguments, and here comes all that. So we got Death's Advance. It's still the same. Nothing has changed. That is one of my preferred choices. I mean, I prefer that if you want movement speed. Chillblains is good for like challenge modes or anything like that. They still have challenge modes in Draenor. They still have that. So you can use Chillblains to kite, for example, if you have too many stuff, or questing also as well. You have too much, well, use that and you can kite them around in case you need healing. But as Blood Death Knights, we really don't have to worry about that. Asphyxiate, I prefer this for any kind of questing or PvP. For those who PvP, I mean, it's pretty good. It's a nice stun, and it also functions as a silence. Now, here comes the big question as well for other Blood DKs coming up in Warlords of Draenor. Now, all these are pretty good choices, except for Runic Empowerment. I don't like Runic Empowerment, but Runic Corruption and Blood Tap are pretty decent. My preferred choice is Blood Tap for this expansion. Still, it is my favorite, and it will always be my favorite. It is still the same as the last expansion. So, I mean, that's pretty solid. Runic Empowerment is still the same, but I really don't like this talent because it's a RNG base, so it's a chance on Death Coil, so I wouldn't prefer that. Runic Corruption. I like Runic Corruption as another choice of Blood Tap in case something goes wrong and you don't feel comfortable with Blood Tap. You could always go Runic Corruption. In theory, Runic Corruption generates more Death Runes if you already have Death Runes saved up from your previous Death Strikes. It generally generates more runes than Blood Tap, but Blood Tap gives you Death Runes on demand. for in case any bosses do any burst damage. Now here comes another tough choice. Well, actually, it's not really a tough choice, but it's a harsh whammy to Death Knights. Death Pact. This was a huge hit on us. Yes, it still heals for the same amount, except now it gives you an absorption, healing 50% of that amount. So healers have to heal you for 50% of the amount you healed for. So use that with caution, because they can't heal you when you use that. So use that with caution. As for the other two, I mean, Death Siphon's junk. I don't like Death Siphon. I never liked it. Conversion, obviously junk. We never use this. Get out of here. Screw you. Okay, now here comes the other parts. I mean, these are all situational. Gorfine's Grasp, same thing as last expansion for those who have tanked before. If you need to pull adds to you or something like that, a massive group, then do that. Hermosa Splinter, still the same. If you need a stun for trash and all that, that's the way to go to. Desecrated Ground, if you're in an instance or questing that you have problems with crowd control, that's going to be your go-to for that. Now, here comes the new part in Warlords of Draenor that I had a very difficult time with to decide here. So let's begin with, and I'll tell you guys what I think. Necrotic Plague is a replacement of your diseases, so that means Frost, Fever, and Blood Plague will no longer be available to you. Instead, it replaces it with Necrotic Plague, which is a powerful disease that deals vice versa amount of Shadow Frost damage every stack, 2 seconds for 30 seconds. Every time it deals damage, it gains a stack and it infects another nearby target within 8 yards. When that enemy or NPC attacks you, you gain 2 runic power every time they do that. And it cannot be refreshed by your Blood Boil, so use that with caution as well. You have to reapply it. But that is my go-to is Blood, because it's kind of better that way. But there's also a debate with Defile. Defile infects the ground below Death Knight, obviously. Well, not below, but you can target. Same thing as Death and Decay. Except it increases its damage and radius by 2.5% every time it hits an enemy. Enemies standing in Defile deal 10% less damage to you. Now, here's the debate between this and this. I mean, Defile is good against multiple. Like, extremely good if you need damage reduction. Necrotic Plague is more of your DPS go-to, or if you want more rune generation, that would be the way to go. And then that would just be if you're taking way too much damage and your healers are having a hard time against multiple enemies, then that would be the go-to as well. And that might be the go-to in the beginning of the lower gear levels at level 100. That'd probably be the go-to. Breath of Sindragosa. This is quite difficult. I do not like this because it wastes your runic power. And it's a 1-minute cooldown. I mean, and it heals you, but just the thought of runic power being spent and continuous spentation of runic power, I don't like that. But that's my opinion. It's up to you guys. You guys can talk about it in the comments below. But Breath of Sindragosa, I mean, it's not my preferred choice. It's kind of a junk talent in my opinion, but that's just me. Your glyphs is the next part. So glyphs here, I mean, there's not really much changes to our glyphs. Anti-Magic Shell, which is the one I currently have, still the same. Outbreak, still the same. And Rune Weapon got nerfed to 25% down, or up from 20, so that's a wham. I mean, there's really not many new glyphs here. I mean, from the last expansion, I mean, it's not that much different, besides, I mean, that was a PvP bonus. Actually, no, that wasn't a PvP bonus, my apologies, but, I mean, actually, yeah, that is a PvP bonus. I didn't know they implemented that in there myself. Ice Pitch is still the same. I mean, that is basically the same thing as your Blood Boil down below. It's the same thing. It's not a big deal. Right, that's going to be a crucial glyph for a major if you don't want to use... I mean, these are my preferred glyphs, but I could use that for a raid if I'm in a raid. Now, here comes the other tricky part. I am not sure if you can use these glyphs. As in red, it means you can't do it. It means saying exclusive with, I mean, it means you have to couple them. I'm not sure, though. I mean, I'm new to this beta as much as you guys are. But I'm assuming you have to couple those, so some glyphs will be off limits. Rune Tap. That's a new one. Granting of an Absorb instead, it heals you for 10% more than what it absorbed. But sad to say, they changed it where you have 50% damage reduction off of your Rune Tap. So that glyph is subjected to change. That's a PvP bonus right there for those who PvP. I mean, you know, when you're struck by a moon imperiling effect, you gain 3 runic power every 1 second for 5 seconds. And that's pretty self-explanatory. Shifting Presence is still the same. Strangle's still the same. Swift Death still the same. Unholy Command.
it's still the same. Vampiric Blood, that's still the same. And then these are not for our spec. And that's the new thing about Warlords too, is you cannot use glyphs for certain specs. So keep that in mind. Alright, so your stats. Going from what I experimented with as a blood DK, your new primary stat will probably likely. I mean, from looking at what we got here, I mean, here's your enhancements. I mean, you always have crit, but I guess it increases your parry chance now. But really, mastery might be still your go-to because it gives you more absorption value. But it's a debate, in my opinion, between versatility, which increases damage and healing done, and also decreases your damage taken. So versatility could be your top, leech could be your secondary. But I mean, mastery and versatility are pretty tight in my books. I mean, multi-strike wouldn't be your preferred stat, and avoidance is a junk stat for us as well. But I'd say mastery is your go-to stat, and then your secondary stat will be versatility, and then your third stat, if you absolutely have to have a third stat, would likely be leech. Because if you're, I mean, it depends on if you're aggro DK or you're a tanking DK. Because you can be both types of tanks. Because I know there are tanks that can be DPS tanks, and there can be prot tanks. I mean, there's both types. So I mean, those are your stats. Those are your go-to. As you can tell, this is all pre-made gear, but I mean, those are your stats right there. I mean, otherwise your rotation's still similar. I mean, yeah, you still get blood shield up, you apply your diseases. That's basically all it is, and then you obviously have your taunts. I mean, I don't have Vampiric Blood on my bar, but you want to use Vampiric Blood when you're about to take some heavy damage. Make sure you use that off cooldown. The only new thing you guys got to pay attention to is your rune tap. And that's going to be useful for bosses that have a nasty mechanic, like, say, i.e. Shaw Fear and Terrace of Endless Spring. Thrash is coming up, you pop Rune Tap, you're going to take half the damage for that 3-second period. Alright, that's pretty nice, but you have to time that accordingly. It's kind of a skill test right there. Vampiric Blood is a defensive CD. We have multiples, just as any other expansion. Use that before you take a nasty hit. I mean, we only have one defensive cooldown for spells, and that's Anti-Magic Shell. That's still the same. Rune Weapon, still the same. Nothing really new there. We have Empowered Rune Weapon for situations where we need more runes and we need a burst for like a Blood Shield or some crap like that. I mean, we still have Icebound Fortitude. Icebound Fortitude is still the same. Nothing really new. We still have Army of the Dead, except Army of the Dead will no longer guarantee damage reduction due to your dodge and parry chance. They took that out too, so that sucks. And then obviously Deathpack I already told you guys about earlier. Outbreak. Got to be careful with that. I mean, I have a glyph, but for those who don't have a glyph, make sure you use that carefully, because you only get one chance to use it with a 1-minute cooldown, I believe, or 30 seconds, my bad. And that's generally it. Use Death Strike. I mean, you could also Blood Boil to increase the healing to Death Strike, so make sure you keep that up accordingly. Death Coil is going to be your runic power dump to use in the Blood Tap or any kind of talent you decide. It's pretty simple as that, guys. I mean, there's not really much more to say about Blood DKs this expansion. Do keep note, most of this will be subject to change. This is beta, so just make sure you do that. That is it for this, guys, though. If you guys have any comments or questions, leave me that down in the comment section below. If you like this, feel free to like, rate, and subscribe. I'll give you guys a link to my Facebook page in the section below as well. If you guys like this video, feel free to give me feedback. And you guys have a good afternoon for those who are on the Pacific server. Otherwise, have a great afternoon for those all around. Take care, guys.